This is the first segment in a new series called the Top 100 Facts. It is my belief or understanding that most disagreement between people is based on, just these very few facts. That there's some, one of these foundational facts that have two people have a difference in, and that's really what creates the disagreement. People can agree on end products or end policy, and they can have differences in these basic facts and still have agreement, but inevitably there will be disagreements, and sometimes they're rather important ones. And it just seems like there should be some way to move towards some sort of common basic understanding. I mean, it's almost like, you almost have to conclude half the population is insanely deluded because they have gotten one of these facts wrong, and so they are functioning as, a psychopath would, or some other person who had some bizarre perception in their head that the CIA was after them, or some other kind of schizophrenic nonsense. And it's that extremism in terms of human belief is just responsible for so much of what's wrong in the world, because we can't come to some we can't make a coherent policy, because half the population in some cases, or most of the population, is insanely deluded. And so it seems like these are that there are these facts that we really should work on if we believe in these things, and to try to get a consensus, or a vast majority, or some other numbers that would be meaningful in terms of having people at least on the same planet. I mean, that might be one of the facts, that we are on planet Earth. People really have to get that right. And but that's what so these first two facts, there's, you could call them 3 or 4 facts, but it doesn't, obviously they're always related. It's God is a big one. That's like the number one fact in the universe, is you have to get that one right, because so much is going to be dependent on what you have, how you have defined the meaning of life on Earth, really. I mean, it's just everything about our existence is sort of dependent on that first fundamental conclusion you draw. And the second fact would be is that we're if there's no God, then physics rules, and vice versa. If physics rules, there's no God. And so those are the first two that I'll just hit them briefly, just because there's plenty of atheists out here and lots of people talking about this stuff and making all the arguments. But I mean, if I'm going to just simply go through in my own mind what cinches the deal on the God subject, is the whole idea that this is obviously an invention by people who are preposterously ignorant compared to what we are now. And to for people to accept a philosophy, it's like asking, walking up to a 3-year-old and asking them, what are trees made out of, or what's the moon made out of. I mean, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't get answers to those questions from a 3-year-old. I mean, you wouldn't ask them, why are we here? What's the meaning of life? I mean, it's preposterous to think that we have just dragged archaic ignorance, into the future. I mean, there's just no point in doing that. And especially when we've had the evidence. I mean, about all the wrong conclusions drawn, and we're not sitting there still doing voodoo dances to cure disease, and we're not trying to release demons or doing this other nonsense, because we see it in our practical lives that won't work. And so people are able to make distinctions and pick and choose what crap from the past they're going to accept, and they just cling to this old piece of crap because they don't think it has any consequence or meaning. They think it's quaint and pretty and nice and poetry, and I'm going to keep it. And they don't really look at the consequence of it, which is world war and an ineffective and inefficient society. There's a price to be paid for all this fairy tale believing in. It oppresses people, and it threatens our very existence because of the fanaticism it creates. And it's just stupid that we haven't been able to get past that. And so the other side of this coin would be the physics part. The part that we've had the evidence of evolution. We've had the evidence of understanding what the universe is made out of. The atoms and the elements and how they interact and the rules and laws that govern their behavior. And we've answered a lot of questions, and so we really don't need to invent an answer anymore. We can logically deduce answers, and the evidence is just so obvious. I mean, to deny evolution is to deny the fact that God didn't create 9,000 breeds of dog. Humans did that. God didn't invent broccoli. Humans did. I mean, we have manipulated through unnatural selection the genetics of organisms. We have done it over the centuries. We have high yields of wheat and other crops because we've engineered these organisms. We've created them. We've improved them, let's say, if that's a better word. So the evidence of the logical evidence that given billions of years that life evolved on this planet is just it just has to be established as a fact. It's just not negotiable anymore. It's not debatable. These people, these agnostics and these religious nuts and the rest of them who vacillate and play games with these truths like they don't have to define it, like we can get away with not answering the question decisively and still be able to make future calculations. That's like saying that you could do mathematics but you would let the numeral 3 could mean anything from 7 to 2, that it doesn't have a fixed meaning. You can't functionally use logic if you're going to keep changing the knowledge base. If you're going to keep saying, well, but that one's a variable, we can change that 14 different ways and morph it, and so that just changes the entire equation. You can't do any productive thinking unless you have to be a little bit decisive. You have to make a choice, and this isn't just some sort of, well, I'm going to play it safe and invest in all the philosophies and all the beliefs and all the facts. And you can't do that. You're going to have to choose which is the truth, and you're going to have to live your life by it, because it's going to make a decisive difference in your capacity to be productive, your capacity to interact in any kind of effective way. And so it is important, and so that's the challenge. And as we go further through this, I guess my ultimate point is going to be there's a lot of atheists out there who, in my opinion, haven't taken any responsibility for their atheism. They've taken one step in the right direction, in the sense they've recognized one obvious fallacy of God, and yet they've clinged to every other supposition and presumption that was ever, that can be contrived. And so they have this selfish worldview that just is completely idiotic, because logically there's no they can't justify their selfishness. Just because there's no God to say it's wrong to be a greedy fuck doesn't mean that logic doesn't say it's wrong. And they're just conveniently, they have eliminated God because they've gotten this moral monkey off their back, and then they haven't replaced it with the logical consequence, which is that there's still a universe that has meaning. There's still such things as ethics. There's still such things as rules of consequence, and words still mean something. Equity still has a meaning. Fairness still has a meaning, and they can't escape that just because there's no God.